To see you again.
Good to see, yeah. But have you opened your video yet?
1 second. No,
Okay.
I did not.
Yeah.
It was shut off. Oops. Okay.
Hello.
Here we are.
Long time no see.
Long time no see. Yeah, it was. How many years is it back that we had our conversation?
Wow, I think at least 3 years.
3 years.
I think
that.
4 years.
I think it was 2019 or something, right?
Yeah.
Maybe. How have you been?
Well, just recovering.
Recovering from all the COVID time and everything?
No, I think it just recover from the COVID for me. I had a very tough time, like a very long COVID. Yeah.
And how do you feel now?
Well, I feel tired. Actually, I was talking to the doctor. I said, and they say for some people it's like that. Yeah, I feel tired and I lose a lot of hair and all kind of things. I said, but they say, you know, it's all natural. Like people all have different post COVID symptoms. So
yeah.
What about you? Did you get it?
Hopefully. Well, yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, so I had it once. But not long COVID, so it was just for a while, and then it was over with. It took I don't know, 3 weeks, maybe something like that. And then so yeah, I was relatively I was certainly lucky, right? But I have a number of friends also with long COVID, so it happens, right? So it's hopefully it will be better soon.
Yeah, hopefully. So is it your time in the evening?
Yeah, this is evening time. You have probably, what time do you have? 9 a.m. or something?
10 a.m. Yeah.
10 a.m. Yeah, I have 9 p.m.
Okay, so let me adjust my light. I think contrast to your light, my light is too white. See if I can adjust it. Just 1 second to see if I can adjust it a bit. Turn the light a bit yellow or change the light a bit. 你把那个大灯关了试一下，这个灯，把这个关了试一下。你再调亮一点，黄一点。太亮了，行，那还刚才那样吧。
I can also turn it more bright here if you want. So
now it's better. Yeah, if you can turn it, so just make it not too much contrast. Yeah. Can 那个也是可调的。上面空间留挺多的，挺好的。对，你的意思是我可以再高一点？对，可以往后对，这样。对。Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Yeah. Actually, I think it's better earlier. I think here have a reflect on the light on the wall. I think earlier is better. But it's okay if it's a contrast a bit because mostly we're just gonna use your video for the. Yeah, earlier. Yeah, this is better.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start, but I'm not gonna. I know we give you a list of questions, but I'm.
Oh, I didn't see them.
You don't have it? Oh, okay.
No.
Okay. So we listed out questions that we want to talk about, and.
No, I didn't. Oh, now I see them. Okay.
It's okay.
So, I didn't open it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we just gonna go through. I think there are several topics. Although it's a lot of questions, but it's mainly 3 parts. One is more about, you know, right now everyone is talking about the GPT, right?
Yeah.
About AI, we want to talk about, you know, what's the difference between human and AI intelligence. You know, how should we prepare, or how should we look at it? Yeah, and how will, you know, we can say how will that affect us in the future, related to education, related to jobs, related to, happiness. And then the second one is actually is similar. It's about last time, the video, a lot of people look at it and a lot of people inspired by what you talk about creativity and what about learning. And the reason, the question I had myself is learning a basic instinct, like it's built in us. It's like a mechanism, like animal, they need to learn, they play, they learn so they can survive, right? So I want to see what do you look at learning? Because right now people think learning is not natural. It's something you need to go to school, you need to spend a lot of time, you need to work hard. And especially in China, I'm not sure how people see that, because a lot of kids drop out from school, right? They hate study, they hate learning. But for me, it's like, I thought learning is built in. It's something built in with us. It's our natural instinct. So I want to see how you see learning, and are we just the school system or everything? Is it a help for someone? Maybe for others, it's a restraint. So we can talk something about study. Another one is happiness, because recently I read some articles. They say, right now we almost, of course, they say we killed, virus, right? But we just had COVID. But they say, compared to the long history we had, a lot of people, 10%, 20% population used to, die, right, during a pandemic. But right now, it's still different. And then also the death rate of because of war is, of course, is for the past maybe 60, 80 years, it's dropped a lot. And but people are not happy. The suicide rate goes up. That's a very social concern in China right now. Of course, we know in Korea, in Japan, they all had this very high suicide rate. And then China right now, the suicide rate is going like, of course, we don't talk about it, but we know that the rate is like this. So I want to see, what is happiness? Because, now we finally, in China, we just start not to be starving for 30 years, right? But are you happy? Like, what is happiness? So maybe we can talk about like mainly 3 parts, but we can see the time. We can start anywhere. The question, what you think about recently, mostly like maybe past 2-3 years, anything. Okay. Yeah.
So is this your first question, or is this a pre-question?
No, actually, my first question can be, for the past 3 years, how you see things differently compared to before, compared to the pandemic. Do you see anything different, or do you have different perspective for life or for other things?
Well, I think like everyone, I see things very different. I think the experience of the last 3 years. It was also 3 years ago that was my last visit in China. I have been missing my regular visits to your country a lot, and but you can stay connected via Zoom, via other mechanisms. And so what changed for me is basically the awareness about what it really is that I really want to do, right? So at first, when everything stopped, you become aware that this is a curse, but it's also a blessing, because not everything that kept you busy is as important as you may have thought. And this question, what is it that I really, really want to do with my life? And what is it that's really, really essential for me? What are the relationships that are really, really essential to other people, to other places, to myself? That's much more in the foreground. I also thought it was fascinating to see that we as a human species, within weeks or months, could change behavior, right? That usually people would think never change. For example, how we wash our hands and things like that. So we have this amazing capacity as humans to, if we focus on an issue, to adapt our behavior, to adapt new behaviors that have not been witnessed at that level of scale ever before. So we also saw amazing ways how we could collaborate. But then, of course, we also saw, think about all the hoarding with the vaccines and so on and so forth. We saw how the inequalities that already existed before in society were amplified, right? As if kind of they were magnified, so that now it's clear to everyone, we need to do something around that. And it can no longer be kind of ignored, right, at the margins of our own attention. So in that regard, I would say the last 3 years invited each and every one of us to look into the mirror, right, and to ask tough questions, not only about ourselves, who we are and who we really want to be, and what is essential for us in our journey forward, but also, I would say, collectively. And it has, there's this word, I don't know whether there's an equivalent in China, but the Great Resignation, right? So many people actually left their job here, and in the US and in other countries, and moved on to new activities, maybe more connected with who they really are and who they really want to be. So there is, I think it was a big jolt of awareness that got injected in all of us, and it made more visible all the stuff that's broken, right? And all the contradictions that we have, but also many good things.
Mm-hmm. And for you, did you have any change in your decisions or in the things you do, or changing your plans?
Clearly, my travel pattern is different, right? I try to travel less, and if I travel, I take longer trips. I also feel that my relationship to place, my relationship to nature has changed, right? I go to places a lot more regularly, and I think my whole pace has, to some degree slowed down, while at the same time, it's funny, at the same time, it also has been speeding up, because now, where we used to travel from one place to another, everything is via Zoom. So it's one thing after another with no transition time. So there is this, both a speeding up, while at the same time, I also feel that in my own life and also in other people's life, our level of control, how we can actually shape what we are doing or not doing, has gone up. So I'm more aware of the choices that I'm taking. And so when I go to places, when I am in gathering with larger groups and with workshops, particularly, what I feel is extremely powerful right now is if you convene groups in nature or in nature-based environments and give them practices for deep reflection, awareness practices to really let the dust settle, right? And connect to our deeper sources of knowing. No, you can do that sometimes. Often it's done under the headline of leadership, and sometimes it's under some other headlines. But I think these types of regenerative environments, where we connect to our deeper sources of knowing, are so much more, they were powerful before, but right now there's such a hunger for these kinds of formats. It's just mind-blowing what is possible in relatively few days, how deep people go, and how much the level of awareness is shifting, and the quality of relationship is deepening in groups, in teams, and also in complex multi-stakeholder situations.
So nature plays a big role here.
It plays a big role, and is nature is a teacher, right? I mean, so that's why Taoism is so important, right? So it's and that's why I would say in China you have such a fantastic foundation through your own traditional culture. So for other people, it may be more alien, that thought, but you have that already in your traditional culture, and that's what a lot of the world is waking up to now. Yes.
So recently we talk because recently I just sent my daughter to Guizhou, where there's a big mountain and river. Because right nowadays a lot of the kids, they play with their phone, right? If they have spare time, they want to look at their phone, they want to chat with their friends or play games. And we find that when kids actually they're outside, they're in nature, and they forgot about their phone, and then they play with their friends. And this is something a lot of parents is concerning right now in China. I see there's a lot of courses to say how to control your kids' screen time. they give you a class. And I don't know if you have that problem in German or in other country. Is it the same? Or how do you look at that? I know, but you can't not go on Zoom, right? We're having our screen time right now. You cannot avoid in the future that you need to use this technology. But also you want to have, this is only 20 years, right? You also want to connect with nature, but the kids right now, they all have an iPad to do their homework, right? So I don't know how you see that and how you think we can balance it. Yeah.
Well, that's a great question, and I would say, I mean, I have been going to Europe, to Southeast Asia, I have been North Africa. Wherever you go, Singapore as well, wherever you go, in all these places, you talk to educators, you ask this question, the question you just asked, and everyone said, and then, do we have this problem here in the US? Big times. So just to give you one number, according to a recent study, in US high schools, 44% of the students show symptoms of extreme hopelessness, anxiety, and depression. Now, that number in earlier studies was in the 20s. That was already shocking, right? Then it went up to the 30s. That was even more shocking. The 44, yes, there is a post-COVID element in that. Mm-hmm. So that's probably a spike. Mm-hmm. But all these numbers, regardless whether it's 25 or 35 or 44, all of that is completely shocking and unacceptable. And so when you then ask in Europe or North Africa or the US or Southeast Asia, so why is that? Everyone has the same answer, right? Technology. I mean, there are like a whole bunch of issues and factors. And of course, COVID has played a significant one. But the main driver is technology. And I find it interesting that some of the, in Silicon Valley, kind of some of the very companies who are among the key drivers of this whole development, a not insignificant number of the executives of these companies send their kids to Waldorf schools, right? Now, Waldorf school is known for those of your listeners who don't know, being extremely low tech, right? So I went to a Waldorf school in Germany, and so it's extremely low tech. And what you learn to do is with your hands, right? You do a lot of craft work with your hand. You write your own books, kind of. Every day you're creating one way or another. And you use your whole body, and you're out in nature and so forth. So there are like a number of schools in that direction, not only Waldorf schools, but it's basically like a more whole person, whole systems environment. And that's kind of the funny thing. So the Steve Jobs was known for not allowing his own kids to use the iPad. Mm-hmm. So there is a knowledge, and then next to down the street, the public US school, the high school, they get the free iPads, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where you see the new class system, right? So there used to be an old digital divide, which is, do you have access to the internet? Yes or no, right? If you don't, you're on the wrong side of the digital divide. Mm-hmm. But now I think we have a new digital divide, which is parents who know that you need to set limits in terms of screen time. And because that is freeing up your kids for having different kinds of experience that are extremely critical, right? Particularly in the early developmental stages. You cannot redo that later on. So you want to have the experiences you were just quoting, kind of being out in nature, and also experiences of boredom where you're not chased around from one activity to another, but where out of nothing, something new can begin to emerge, where you begin to invent something. So at the beginning of any creative process, there is a little bit of nothingness, right? Nothing happens. And that's right. So what you need to learn is when nothing happens, well, then you are not disengaging, you're engaging more deeply, because that's the opening for something really interesting, which is something new, to come into your awareness and to invent a new game or to invent a new way of relating to things or whatever it is. So those types of experiences only happen if you create a space for that, right? And Mother Nature is a wonderful space for that, but it can be also like, in some other place, but it's a space that is not bombarding you with just kind of more flashlights and more distraction, where your attention is fed and kept on a very kind of shallow level. And yet, what we know, all creativity is really based on deep attention, is based on the capacity for sustained attention, on the capacity to connect with something in a deeper way and to just stay with it, and thereby allows something new to take shape.
Yeah, I totally agree, but I have a confusion, right? But during the lockdown, a lot of us cannot go out, right? So you're right, this is a very new experience, right? In the past, maybe we're working, we go home very tired, we go to bed, we play with kids, and then we have no time to really have this space. And now we have there's the divorce rates go high up, right? And people say they don't have to face each other, but now they're locked in the same room and they realize they cannot bear each other. And but a lot of people, for me, it's like I have this awareness of that I am used to be busy. I am used to be my attention. I used to, if not working, I'm talking to my kids or I'm reading a book. Like for now, maybe when I have quiet time, I have to read a book. If I don't read a book, if I do nothing, it's very scary. It's like you feel this emptiness, and you want to talk to someone. I read that they say the real emptiness is you shouldn't read a book, because even reading a book is like talking to someone, right? Connecting with someone. And I feel like I have this urge to do something instead of just, sit there and then I have to read books until I'm tired and then go to sleep. I see a lot of my friends have the same thing. They have a lot of anxiety. They have to do things. Otherwise, they say they have to act. If they don't act, they go crazy. I see a lot of people around me, especially entrepreneurs or all kind of people during this period. They want to work, but they can't work. And some of them, even my friend right now, I worry about him. He's shut down his phone for 30 days. I'm talking to my friend. I feel he get this deep depression that he don't want to go out. He don't want to see anyone. So I have seen a lot of things like this. I don't know. I'm sure you meet a lot of people that may have the same feeling. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's I think that kind of phenomena is particularly strong in China, right? It's also very strong here where I'm living, certainly in this part of not only in this country in general, but also this part of the country. It's certainly, which is kind of the East Coast area here, Boston. And I grew up in Germany, as I may have shared with you last time, very much similar, right? I mean, so it's that's something that sounds quite familiar to me. To some degree, it's also what makes this urge to do something is not just something entirely negative. Let's also say it's something very positive as well, because it is, it relates to a work ethics. It relates to a kind of being in service of something. And I think when you look at the economic success story kind of China and of some other places, it goes often together with a work ethics, right? So there is, I'm not saying it's entirely bad, right? I'm saying what you described is also a virtue to some degree, but just everything in life, if there is just too much of that, and it's not in harmony, right, with, the other side of the spectrum, then if there is no middle way, in other words, right, that's a problem, right? And of course, that's what you know from no other place better than Chinese philosophy, right? And in fact, I was earlier today looking back when I did my basic research, an interview in Hong Kong with Master Nan Huai Chin, and he talked really about the Confucius essay, The Great Learning. And he mentioned, and he basically said that this is a great teaching about leadership. And it exactly starts with what you just described, right? So that path, so that inner path to leadership. So the foundational principle is, before you are a leader, right? Before you learn leadership, you first have to become a real human being. And he describes these 7 meditative steps of leadership. The first one being awareness, and the second one to stop, knowing when to stop. And that's exactly what the COVID experience imposed on us, right? Because knowing when to stop is, for us, particularly all of us who are so busy, right? And everyone who has children, right? You have your parents, you have your children, you have your jobs. And I mean, it is crazy busy, right? For everyone, right? Knowing when to stop is the hardest thing on earth. But Master Nan is claiming it's also the most important thing on earth, right? Because if you only, when you learn to stop, you begin to access the gold kind of that is residing in the deeper levels of your experience. But if you don't access them, if you don't pay attention to them, you will not benefit from them. So therefore, it is a shift of, in terms of how we operate. And at the very beginning of their journey, he claims, is kind of this double movement of awareness and knowing when to stop.
Yeah, my place is a bit loud, so sometimes I just mute because someone, I think, is banging on the wall. Okay. Okay. So when you say the 7 step, so what's the rest of the steps?
So I think the third step he described as calmness, samadhi, I think is the term for that. And then the fourth step is, so that's kind of, so basically you go down the U, right? And at the bottom of the U is stillness or quietness. And from there, you move into the state of grace, and from grace to true thinking, and from true thinking to attainment. So when I listened to that, I was picturing that in my mind around the U process, right? Knowing when to, awareness, knowing when to stop, kind of calmness, and then from there going into the deeper levels of quietness and grace, and from there then on the right-hand side of the U, moving towards true thinking and attainment of the attainment of the goal. That was how he was describing that. That's how he described that process, and how I think it's a very valid way of describing the inner capacities that in today's world we need to cultivate as leaders, because many of the practical things that keep us busy are activities that sooner or later will be better done by machines anyway, right? By AI. But it is kind of these deeper levels of meditative awareness where we connect to our deeper levels of knowing, which cannot be easily done or done at all by AI as we develop it today. And that's why in today's educational system, these deeper, truly human capacities are the most important one to focus on. Not only because we need them to deal with the world that we live in already, but also because in the future, what we know today as AI will be further evolved and will further replace some of the functions we now do with our busy mind, but that's only one part of our reality that will constitute tomorrow.
So this comes to the question, in the future, if, we have abundant resource, we don't have to worry about food, we say the country is rich, right? We have this technology, we don't have to work to feed us, right? And then what is happiness, right? I think that's already happened in a lot of countries right now. Most people don't have to worry about, if I don't work, I can't feed myself. It's more about, I want to have a better life. And like we just said, when the AI technology can do a lot of function, maybe there are a lot less things that we can do. And as a human, what do you think are the things that we're different than a machine or different than AI?
Well, I think it's really two questions that you ask. The first one is kind of the world we are moving into. And I would agree and also disagree to some degree with what you said. So I want to make a comment there first and then answer your main question. So I think, yes, I agree that we move into a world where AI will replace more and more many of the functions kind of that we deal with our work world today, right? So that's certainly going to happen, and it's already happening to a large degree, and that will continue. So everything that can be mechanized, right, and that can be done with AI function will be replaced and will be done more efficiently that way. Now, does that, though, mean it is so the food and everything will be there? I'm not so sure, because that's kind of when you look at the mechanization of our food systems, that's exactly where the problem is, right? And I think that's where we have a huge vulnerability. And I think we need to actually and what you often see is, yes, there is maybe food, but it's all junk food, right? The quality is going down. It's genetically modified, and it doesn't taste. It is it's lacking many of the nutrients, and it's kind of constituting to this to a state of mind that is not what we mean with well-being and happiness. So I think there is a lot that we don't know about the food systems and the current way of mechanizing it, and is in part, right? In part, it's kind of maybe efficiency, but in part, it's also moving in the wrong direction, because a truly regenerative food system is based on diversity. It's based on not getting rid of farmers, but making the work and kind of the loving attention of human beings a critical component of the production of quality food. I think the definition of what quality food is and how foundational that is for our health, for our well-being, not only in our bodies, but also in our mind, that knowledge will only grow. And the more it grows, the more we will also learn that it's not about getting rid of the human being in the farming and the growing and processing of food process, but maybe evolving it in a way kind of that that makes more sense for everyone. So that's kind of where I think, so yes and no, kind of in terms of how you phrase the question. Now, directly, what does that mean for education? I think what it means is that in education, you can say we always had two main functions, right? Sometimes it's called kind of the two meta functions of education. And they are, number one, of course, the transfer of knowledge, right? That's kind of one core function. But then there's a second meta function of education and learning, and that is capacitating, enabling the next generation to sense and shape the future. That's what education is for, right? So you capacitate the next generation to sense and, shape the future in a way kind of that is appropriate to that generation. And today, where we live in such a moment of profound disruption, we certainly do an okay job, I would say, on the first meta function, right? Which is transfer of knowledge. Kind of that's kind of how our systems are organized, right? Kind of transferring the knowledge. But the second meta function, right? Capacitating the next generation to sense and shape the future, that's not delivered at all in most systems. Because most knowledge that we learn in schools is already outdated when we kind of, after graduation, apply it to reality. And also because the environment is shifting and changing so quickly, among others, through AI, but not only. And what that means is that we need to revert to a much more holistic way of education, which is just a way of saying it's not enough to focus in education on the intelligence above the neck, but we also need to focus on what's below the neck, right? With the intelligence of the heart, which means kind of the intelligence of the relationship. It means our capacity to listen. It's our capacity to be in communication with each other, to be in communication with strangers, with people that you disagree with, people who don't belong to your tribe. Those are very important capacities. And then, of course, the intelligence of the hand, right? Which is the learning by doing, which is I would say what we need to develop is action confidence. It's the confidence when I don't know what to do, So when I face a situation where it's unclear what I need to do and where the future is unknown, where I have the confidence to take a step into the territory of the unknown and then read the response that's coming back to me, and thereby then navigate my next step. That's what the creative process is, right? The creative process is something where you engage with something that you don't even know exactly what it is, but that keeps evolving as you begin to do things. And you're not only looking at that from outside, but you're feeling yourself into that a little bit. And then respond, you take a step, and then something else happens, and then you respond to that and adapt and adjust your own response. It's that kind of feeling, knowing, that combined with your capacity to take practical steps, which is really the foundation to act in new environments and to venture into new territories, that through this intelligence, which is mainly looking backward, which is mainly looking into the past, cannot be known. And that's, I would say, where we today have the biggest gap in education, because we are brilliant here. We are good in transferring the knowledge of the past, but how good are we in capacitating the next generation, our own kids, to deal with emerging futures, to deal with new situations, and to develop the confidence when, the known systems kind of stop functioning, as we saw in COVID, for example, then to be able to act, and then to be able to take leadership in situations like that. I think on this planet, we'll see a lot more of these situations, and we need to capacitate our kids to be confident and creative in these situations, so that in these transition moments, they are able to create new solutions. And that's what always happens in history, right? So when you live in a time of transition where something is ending and something else is beginning to emerge, that's where you have amazing possibilities. And that's where this capacity to innovate from nothing, right? Not innovate based on already existing algorithms, but innovate from nothing, kind of really tuning into new patterns that maybe want to happen, that cannot be predicted by an AI function of the past. Maybe that's an input, right? But I think these deeper creative capacities, it's not a shallow creative capacities, but a deep creative capacity, that's exactly what's unique for us. What's unique for the species of human beings, if you compare it with other species, is, and we saw that in COVID, our relationship to the future. Right? If you look at, schools of fish, if you look at birds, if you look at bees, for example, maybe they are organized by a higher intelligence. It looks like, right? It's a much more orderly than how we behave, but they don't have a choice. They always organize according to the same rules. It's only human beings. We are the only species who can reshape the way we organize, the way we collaborate, not only kind of in one place, one village, but across the country, across the entire planet. So we can form these patterns of collaboration, we can shift them, we can shift the rules of our own behavior, as we saw in COVID. That's an amazing capacity. And that's, I think, where we as in evolution, right, are just at the very beginning. So we are hitting a threshold here. We are hitting a new challenge, but there is an amazing capacity that cannot be substituted through AI, and where we can intentionally structure the way we want to collaborate going forward. And I think that's what education is about, giving us the possibility to really unearth and activate this deep creativity, as opposed to just shallow creativity in terms of recombining what's already existing.
So are you positive that we're going to be able to head that direction? Because, I heard a lot of young people right now in China or in other part of country, because, I don't know if so there's two part of the question. One is, do you see that we are heading the positive position, that we can, when we face this, transition period, this change, that we will do it best for us. And then second is, you talk about, we talk about many times about confidence, right? So we need to have the confidence to how our education can give our kids that confidence. How education can help kids have that kind of confidence that will reshape the future.
Yeah. Well, I think there are two ways how you can learn this confidence. One is seeing people acting that way. So I remember that very clearly. So you see people up close that face these situations, and they just have the confidence to step into that. That's kind of one precondition. And the other one, the main one, is by doing it. It's the only way. So, and that means you need practice fields. So by doing it, there are many ways how you can practice that, right? Yes, kind of eventually it's in real life and so on, and your whole kind of your whole life, right? The professional part and also the other parts. But there are many practice fields in school, right? Kind of where you can develop these capacities, and a lot have to do with art practice, with doing stuff, building stuff. So I think and that's why, for example, in a Waldorf school, but also in other schools, kind of that are organized around action learning component, right? That the way you develop confidence is by doing, right? And the more we can organize learning processes around not only following our own questions, but by building things, right? That we use then to explore possibilities, the more this confidence is activated. And it's what it means later on is, it's not that you know what you should do in a particular situation, but you are not afraid of stepping into a situation where you don't know. And you are used to access your not knowing, to leaning into that and to sense into what's actually kind of what's wanting to happen here. So you tune yourself, you pick up more subtle signals, right? And you open up on a deeper level of sensing and knowing that is really helping you to navigate some of these less well-defined situations. Now, to your question, am I confident? So do I know that everything will turn out well? Of course I don't. No one does. What is it I can control? What I do. That's what I can control. And that's what I'm focusing on. And I think we live in a situation where the solution will not come from one place or the other. The solution, if we really succeed in this transition period, right, activate the best future potential, let's put it that way, then it happens when it comes from many places. I mean, in extreme, I would say when it comes from everywhere, right? So now everywhere is maybe not really necessary, but many places, it means kind of from the top, from the bottom, right? From the middle, kind of from the periphery. That's how I believe, change often happens. So it's not limited to one place, but it is kind of multiple places that form their own structures and then link up with each other and begin to amplify each other. And I would say what's going on in the world today is that there is this awareness, right? This awareness that something is broken with our current system. You talk to leaders, right? You talk to people on the street, you talk 3 out of 4 people in G20 countries, right? So that's are in support of transforming our current economic system to better address climate and inequality issues. So that means, and you know, I when I work with the UN, when I work with leaders from across sectors, pretty much everyone knows the system is broken. Now, has that changed the collective behavior? No. But I think this awareness is the first step. And then new practices begin to emerge in small spaces first. And from there, they will grow. So I think we see a lot of positive examples, for example, on a city level, on a community level, on single school level. Is it the whole school system? Not yet, but it's many kind of individual schools that we can really learn from. And when you look into nature, how does the news start in nature? And the answer is as a seed. The seed has already the entire future present. But you don't see it. It's dormant. Much of it is dormant. That's exactly where we are in society right now. So we need schools that teach us to see the seeds and to cultivate the seeds, the right kind of seeds. They're in our hearts, they're in our relationships, they're in our communities, and they're in our relationship to nature, to each other, and to ourselves. And that's, I think, what a good school is, right? Kind of to help to recognize what is it that really matters and to cultivate our attention towards that.
So what suggestions you can give to adults, right? We already go through, the education system. Maybe the main issue for us, when we grow up is to have a good job, right? To survive, to better, support your family, or for some people, they are from the countryside, they want to, at the end, their children can, stay in the city. And, but now a lot of people feel this emptiness, or they feel this, anxiety, because during that time, the education is more, I'm talking about in China, it's more about how to change your life, right? You go to a good school, you change your life, and then you're not living the same as your parents or better than your parents. And, education right now in China, there's a lot of kids because have too much pressure. Their parents have the same way of thinking. And of course, the world's changed, but they feel this is what's necessary for you to have a good future. And then we say a lot of people have emptiness. They don't know the meaning of life. Even middle-aged people like my generation or older generation, like we talk about why we cannot, when you say the you, right, we have to calm down first. We have to have the emptiness first. But the emptiness become very scary. I'm sure you met a lot of students, right? If you say, you need to stop, and but the stop is making a lot of people scared because they're used to just do. The do, I think, is different than the do you're talking about before, right? They do things without thinking, and they don't think why I should do it. It's not about creative, it's just about doing it. So how you think as an adult, we already built this way, and then we feel this big emptiness, maybe not happy, maybe just feel anxiety, what suggestion for us to reborn, right? To to have the courage, to have the confidence that actually we can, look within ourselves, have the opportunity to relook at our, life and to start again.
Well, you're asking a really fundamental question. I don't think there is a single answer to that. So I think in this century, there are as many answers to that question as there are human beings. So, and I really believe in that. It is kind of a question of choice, and for some of us, it may not be the right moment, right? So I may maybe I feel the emptiness, and I'm afraid of that. And maybe it's too early for me. It takes another year, another 10 years. For others of us, we are ready to confront the emptiness, right? and to move from awareness to stop, right? I think the awareness is there, right? That's why I quoted the numbers, right? In many people, the awareness is there. But then the next stop Master Nan is talking about, to stop, knowing when to stop, that's the hard part. And I think that in part is a matter of human choice. However, so for example, I was running earlier today an online session with a big company, right? So that's also present in in China, and so it's a Western company. So it was kind of very normal, right? Very normal people, kind of not top management. That's what I have been working with the top management, but this session was really very regular people, kind of. So, and what they were, so basically we talked about levels of listening and conversation, and then they had a little practice with each other. So I showed them a little video clip, and then they talked in small groups, and they came back. They were all shocked or surprised, not shocked, surprised by how easy and pleasant it was to move to a deeper level of listening and conversation, and how regenerative it was. So I would, I hear what you say, but I would like to challenge that also a little bit, because I think it is, of course, what you say. I have experienced the same things, including in China, right? I think in China, it's particularly strong what you describe, but it's not unique to China. It's also in other places. And what I find interesting is that just beneath what you describe, there is another layer of human experience where people are actually ready. They're waiting for this. But what is it they are lacking? They are lacking these spaces. So like what we did. So, okay, so here's blah, 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 the 4 levels, now, and so here's a little example. Now talk to each other, right? Here are 2 questions. Very simple. And then they talk, and they are surprised how different their relationship, how different their listening, how different their conversation, how much more positive energy comes out of that in just 10 or 15 minutes. So I have seen that so often. I mean, this is online. When we would have done this in place, in nature, right? It would have been even much deeper than that. So I would claim, that's my life experience. My life experience is the resistance against these deeper places is very minimal. The problem is they are not accessible to people, right? The moment you create these places where easily you can experience a very different level of connection and conversation and being together, people deeply appreciate that, right? Maybe it's not 100%, it's way over 90%, I tell you. And why is that? And the answer is because on a collective level, we already face the threshold, right? That's our sustainability problem. We are running an economy today on this planet that's basically wrecking the planet. It has to do with our consumption. And so we need to look into the mirror, right? So we already know that, but it's in our subconsciousness often, right? And the moment we look into the mirror, but people know that, and they go through experiences where they had to let go of certain aspects of their past and where something new is happening. And so a lot of people, particularly from organizations, bring experiences that prepare them already kind of for this kind of deeper connection and this deeper conversation. So I find it surprising how easy it is. And that's why I'm also so confident that when we reimagine our schools, that a whole different way of learning is possible. And why do I say that? Because I have seen it. And we are now, I'm now working with the OECD, kind of the organization for, all the developed countries, to reimagine. So with their, as you may know, there's kind of these, China is also part of that. It's kind of the educational department has always these tests about high performing, low performing, and Shanghai and other have been scoring very high there, together with some Northern Europeans and so on. So there's like a club of the top 10 countries, right? And they want to reimagine. They, the very people kind of who were highlighting all the STEM type of capacities, right? Science and technology and so forth. They know that's not enough for this century. And that in this century, in addition to science and technology, we need aesthetic competencies, right? Which is the education of the heart. And we need kind of the practical competencies of shaping the future and ethical competencies, right? Those capacities that cannot be easily replaced by AI. And because they know that, they want to prototype that now together with the regulators, right? Not just with school people, but with the people who are setting the systems in these countries. Because often there are examples of good schools, but it's not replicated across the entire system. So that's, for example, a project we'll be starting this year. And I hope very much that Shanghai, together with another province in China, may be part of that. And that's one of the examples, one of the many initiatives where a lot of positive things are already in the making today. Often they are local, and often they are not that much talked about, because what we see amplified in social media is all the bad news, right? Everything that makes us depressed, right? So there's a lot of noise that's being pumped into us every day through social media and through lots of other mechanisms. And it is just very hard, right? Being a human being these days and not, and not being depressed by all this information that's pumped into us. But that is one more reason why we need to develop these deeper capacities, to wake up, right? Awareness is basically waking up, right? And then knowing when to stop and when we access the deeper levels of our own stillness. And that's, I think, the foundation for really being functional in the world that is coming our way from the future.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because although I talk about a lot of friends, they're depressed, they feel not happy, but I think they start thinking why I'm not happy, instead of I just keep being busy, right? So the past 3 years, a lot of people realize they're not happy. I think that's the difference. I think before is they don't know how they feel, right? They're just busy. And now they feel, I'm not happy with where I am. I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy about that. But I don't have a way. I don't know. Maybe read books or maybe talk to friends. I haven't found a way of changing it, but at least I'm aware that this is not what I want. And, something is wrong. I think a lot of people right now in China are aware of that, just like you said. So maybe that's what you see when we gave you a space and the change is very fast. Maybe they just, in society, in their job place, at their home, or in the community, we don't have the habit of having this kind of practice. We don't have the opportunity, right?
Exactly. I was earlier this week, actually, kind of 2 days ago, I was in New York, right? And I had a few meetings at the UN, United Nations. And I've been there a bunch of times, of course, but that more lately, kind of often it was really online meetings, right? I go there into the floor that usually is totally busy, right? Busy with people. And, it's hard to find a corner there because there's like all the offices are packed with people. What do I see? Kind of my host was there. and then one other person, right? Everything else is empty. So there's something happening, and it's San Francisco, it's the same thing. So there's something happening with our inner cities, right? Everyone is working from home. We have these enormously expensive office buildings basically emptied out, right? And when you work everything from home, yes, it's more convenient. Yes, you're more efficient, but you are also more alone. Mm-hmm. And so I think this office space with all the cubicle that is totally unused, and that is a huge question mark in our society. It's a question mark to exactly the question that you raised, which is, where are these new formats where we come? No one needs another cubicle there, right? And being cramped with other people. No, we prefer to work from home, right? So, okay, so I understand that. But still, we need connections. But what are these spaces where we can cultivate these connections? And where do we really come together? I think that's these empty office buildings are a huge question mark, not only in terms of how do we reinvent our inner cities, our urban spaces, but also how do we want to work and how do we want to live, right? And what are these new blended ways of, yes, we do a lot digital from the place where we live, maybe, but then we also need another way of experiencing community, experiencing nature, experience each other. And I think when you look into the research, yes, a lot of people are unhappy. A lot of people know something is broken, but they don't know. They want to be part of a different story. They don't know how. That's very much where we are. And we know from research, how do we, so what are really the sources of happiness? It's connection. It's connection to nature, connection to each other, people kind of we love and love to hang out with. And it's connection to ourselves and to our higher purpose, kind of to our what's, let's say kind of our highest future possibilities, right? Kind of the deeper potential that's dormant within or around us somehow. And so those are, I think, what's lacking today is practices where these three types of connections, where they can be cultivated, where we don't just have them habitually, but where we can cultivate them in a more intentional way. And personally, I think that will probably start with smaller groups, right? So it's kind of, that's how it begins. So it's more easily done in small groups. So that's, you can start with your friends or with some colleagues, or it's maybe neighbors. I don't know what it is, but so I think that's where we lack spaces, new spaces of connections, because the old spaces of connection are gone. I mean, and the visualization of that is the empty office building, right? But that's just kind of a symbol for many old ways of where I live in a society here in America. What do we see? The country is beginning to fall apart, right? So there's kind of this group and that group, and they can't talk to each other. We live in a social media world where everyone is stuck inside their bubble, right? And what we used to have, which is you go down the street, you talk to your neighbor, kind of the crazy guy, right, who has this crazy political views, but then you find a way, right? So you talk about kids, you talk about the neighborhood and so on. So we used to be much better in linking up with people who are different than us, right? Now in the social media world, we are only hanging out with people who apparently are have very similar views. And that's not good for creativity, right? And it makes us stuck inside a bubble. And basically what good education is allowing you to penetrate, to develop an awareness that is moving beyond your own bubble, right? I think good education is bubble hopping, right? You experience one bubble and then one that's very different, and then one that's also very different. And that is waking you up. Creativity emerges when you are participating in more than one world, right? or one culture. So that's, I think those are structures that we need, and often that's not existing yet. We know something else is there, but we haven't developed the practices yet. But we will do that. We'll get there, and a lot of the seeds are already there, and it will be very interesting to allow these seeds to grow.
Yeah, because we see right now, because of the social media, right? You just, on friends, people have a different opinion, right? We talk about there are certain things you cannot talk with your friends, right? Or you have no friends, because then you have different opinions and people stop talking. But just like you said, if the education, when they start from kids, right, they realize they're curious about why they're different, rather than they get angry, right? They want to protect their own opinion. Yeah. And then can you repeat the 3 things we should cultivate, but we didn't, we need more practice? And do you have any suggestions? For example, if I have a small group, I have a few friends right now, they're going through this transition period. Their company may be in crisis for the past 3 years, their personal life might be in crisis, right? And, just a lot of people are rethinking of what they should do. And if you have a small group, how should I, like, say, maybe 7, 8 people, and we want to see how we can, do this transition period, and what we can do to go through those, cultivate those 3 parts?
So I think the size of your group is perfect. It's often, 5, 6, 7, 8. Something like that. That's a perfect group size, because it's easily self-organizing, and you can develop a real trust relationship really soon. We have, for example, so one answer to your question would be what we develop as case clinics. So it is on the U School website, and you can also ask Lily, or I can ask her to send it to you. There is also, I'm sure, Chinese versions of that, also on Shuetang, and that's a 60-minute process. It basically moves you in 7 steps around the U within an hour, and it's based on one case giver. So one person is giving a case and basically describing an edge. So what's ending, what's beginning, and a little bit the situation, and then the other 6, right? One person is presenting a case, and then the other 6 are the coaches, and they listen deeply with your mind and heart wide open and ask clarifying questions. They are not allowed to make suggestions how to fix it, So you want to prevent that in the beginning. Because why? You want to go down the U, and the down the U means you need to stop, right? You need to sit with it and allow this case story to work on you. So they describe the situation, a few clarifying questions, and after that comes stillness, right? Quietness. And in the stillness, you connect to your deeper source of knowing, and then the coaches mirror back images and feelings, what they feel, and also gestures. So for example, that a gesture could be this, or it could be that I diminish myself, or I grow, whatever it is. So you express with a gesture what you felt, what you experienced while listening to the case. And then the case giver is taking in the images, the feelings, maybe the gestures, and then reflecting a little bit on that. And then there is like generative conversation, right? Where you try to be helpful to the case giver. And often what's happening there after this mirroring and after the stillness is a much deeper level of the real change is actually, or the real question is actually surfacing. And at the end of that hour, almost always, the case giver comes out with new ideas, with a strengthened energy, right? The energy is up, and it really, so you feel the loving, because you know that, right? If you talk to one person who can really deeply listen and you have a real situation, you come out of that conversation with a lot more energy. And so if someone is really paying loving attention to you, right? That's a support. That's the biggest support we can give to each other, because, you know, true love means you love, loving another person means trying to help the highest future potential, what wants to grow that this other person has, to realize, to actualize, right? To allow kind of this kind of highest future to manifest. And that's what's actually happening in these circles, right? So you receive this feedback not just from one person, but from 5 or 6 others. And then you have some closing reflection. That's it. So it's only 1 hour. It's not that long, but it's a very structured process. And so we also have online. That's in English though. Online instructions. I'm sure there are like on WeChat versions of that also. Lily can give that to you, and that's one way of doing it. But what I would definitely suggest is small groups, 5 to 7, 8 people, as you said. I would definitely suggest some kind of process where you probably want to take a deeper dive to 1 or 2 persons situation, right? So to just kind of give more, because the biggest gift we can give as human beings is attention to each other, loving attention to, with the really wanting to support someone else. And then that's one condition, right? Kind of for a really generative conversation to happen, this open mind, open heart, and the intention to really to help on the side of the coaches. And on the side of the case giver, there's a second condition, right? And the second condition is you need to share your real case, right? Because we all have 2 cases, right? One is the official case when I go to a corporate training or something like that, right? Blah, 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 something busy, really problem. Oh, how interesting idea. I will think about it. And the other case is the real case, right? And the real case, if I share with you my real case, it means I need to show you my vulnerability, right? I need to show you where I'm actually not succeeding, but failing, right? I tried something, or I should have tried, I didn't even, something that when I share with you my real case, it puts me 1 down. I'm no longer kind of looking down. So, and to show my vulnerability to a circle of friends or strangers, I don't know what your relationship is, requires courage, right? Requires the capacity to move beyond the habitual, oh, we are all so great and doing so interesting things. So it's really to show up more as a human being who is, courageous enough to go to the edge where something old is wanting to die and something new is wanting to be born, but I cannot do this alone.
This is a very good suggestions, and I think I will look into it, and then maybe we will form a small group and then to experience it. So is that
Sure.
what you do? Is, I know you're teaching a lot, but mostly is to companies, right? It's about leadership.
No, it's so it's companies. We also do. We are currently running, or each year we are running a free open online program. That's basically for anyone who wants to learn to practice these tools. And I think there is a 2 Chinese version of that. One is Tsinghua University, Shuetang, I don't know whether they still have that, but it used to be there, offered then through other universities as well. And then through WeChat, I think there are like tons of groups. There have been hubs in more than 100 countries, I think, in cities, right? So in many places, there have been small groups kind of using these practices for practicing deep listening and so forth. So that's what Lily could certainly give you some links or some. I'm sure there are resources that people could use. And it can be entirely self-organized, and it's something that can be very practical, because I think in these beginnings, we know what's not working. What's not working is, and it's very clear. I mean, you can see kind of depression is a function of your quality of relationship to others, really, and it's a function of your rate of media consumption, right? We all need to consume media. I do it too. But can you say stop, right? Can you put a boundary? That's the question. And that's why forming these types of groups is absolutely critical. And I would say if you can build in kind of some nature environment or context into that, even the better. But you know, sometimes so I live in a privileged outskirts of Boston. So for me, it's easy to go into nature. That not everyone can do that. But there is, so even if you just look at the sky or so there's, I think wherever we are, kind of there is a possibility to connect to nature. And I think it's just kind of one of the biggest not used resources around. And so now that I'm talking, I mean, there's another practice. I'm just returning from Israel and or a Middle East trip, kind of among other to Israel. And that's where we did with the Ministry of Education a mapping of the system. So it's a longer story, but I will just kind of cut through the chase and come to the conclusion. What was the main insight from that current state of the educational system? And the main issue was really the situation of the teachers, right? And the other players. So what really was so moving and also you know, shocking to some degree, how clearly it came out is how the entire educational system added up. So number one, the teachers, right, were very depressed, right, in a very and that's the case wherever you go, right? So I think they're not in a situation that is furthering their well-being. And then the kids tried to connect with the emerging future, right? There was a role that playing the emerging future. And just about everyone else, including the parents, trying to prevent that, right? Not out of bad intentions. So they had the best intentions, but it all resulted in preventing the children to connect to the highest future potential. And everyone in the system was ignoring planet Earth, right? Mother Nature. So I think that really sums up pretty much what's broken with our educational system, right? So that the kids are disconnected from what's most important, which is the emerging future and their capacity to directly relate to that. And that the entire system is basically ignoring nature as a teacher. And that's one of the biggest resources we have. And I think going forward, we'll see a lot more innovation in both of these directions.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. I think right now we feel nature just in documentaries. I mean, yeah. for most kids, right? And it's like most activity is indoor, right? and especially the past 3 years. I think that's why a lot of people have, even young kids, they have this depression. Also teachers, and then they're all staying at home. So I think maybe now is the best time we all go out nature. We take some time. Finally, right now, China, we can go outside, we can go abroad, we can go freely. So maybe we suggest parents, right? For their kids, for their parents, grandparents, for them, if they have the time, take the kids or take the older generation outside, because for past 3 years, travel has been restricted, and now you have the time, just go out to nature and, take the kids to the mountain, to the river. And I think just by doing that, maybe a lot of people can feel better.
Absolutely. I'm 100% convinced that this is the case. And that's also my experience.
So I think we have limited time. So I really want to talk about more with you. Maybe we can find another time. I know your time is very late.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people right now in China, I know they, just like what we said, right now, after the past 3 years, they want to rethink about their life. And then I want to see if I will talk to Lily too. Maybe there's something we can do, some kind of in an online, a bigger group, and then teach people the way of using it. If they can help themselves, help their neighbors, or help their close friends, and what they can do, maybe can do some simple practice. At least they can experience it, and then maybe later they can do more. Yeah, especially kids. Right now, I know a lot of school teachers are very nervous. I know we talk about this. We probably cannot broadcast this, because I know a lot of the even in Shanghai, every kids, they have to fill out a form, primary school, middle school, because the teacher worry about suicide, and they will look at every kids have to do that, and so teachers are nervous, education system are nervous, everyone is like very, 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 struggle and tight. I think if we can teach them simple things, if teacher can learn this, they can maybe teach that at school, or I can talk to Lily, maybe we can find a time, see if there small things we can do, and to help some of the people. Yeah,
that would be terrific. And I know what you describe maybe manifest in a more extreme way, where you just described it, but it's the case all over the place. So it's really, it's not really attended to. So it's mostly ignored, right? So there's kind of a lot of pain inflicted on children, but particularly kind of through all the pressures and kind of the the brutality with all the knowledge that is really forced into them, these small beings, right? And it's really violence inflicted on them, and that's the reaction we get. So I think there is something that is the deeper issue in education today, so that we need a very different, we need a deeper understanding of the human being in order to really redirect what we are doing in education. There's something, what you describe is a symptom that is popping up in different forms all over the place, and that really should make us stop and reimagine and reshape that system.
Yeah. Totally agree. And then,
so if I can be of any help, I'm happy to explore that together with you and Lily and whoever may be involved in that.
Yeah, great. Thank you for your time today. Yeah,
thank you so much.
And then see what we can do. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Yeah.
开心姐